Okay. I'll just be Councilmember Herrera. Okay, good afternoon. I'm gonna call the Pierce County Council Tuesday study session to order. If we have all of my colleagues here, with the exception of Councilmember or Vice Chair Herrera and Councilmember Burrell, who are excused. And the time, sorry, I always forget that, it's 12:01. We're gonna start with Ms. Long to go over our agenda for today. Ms. Long.
All right, thank you and good afternoon. This is your regular council meeting agenda for this afternoon's meeting. It is amended. Now, we did review the consent agenda items yesterday during study session, but I just wanted to point out a couple of things. So one of the resolutions on there for final consideration, I think one of the members might be here, but probably can't stay late enough to pull it over to resolutions under section 8. And so I think that's the plan is to just allow him to comment, introduce himself as he would during section 8, but do it under the public comment of consent agenda. So it'll be a little different, but it'll give him his opportunity. So, and then the other note is just that we've removed the italicized language. We've put the grants on that were briefed yesterday. So we'll move to section 7, proclamations, and you do have one this afternoon. This is a proclamation of the council and the executive proclaiming February 2025 as Black History Month in Pierce County. And I don't know who won the arm wrestling match for the reader.
Oh, I don't know either, but Councilmember Denson has her light up, so maybe she won.
I had a question on another topic, but since Councilmember Herrera is not here, then I win. No, I will chat with him, but my thinking is, I believe Councilmember Herrera had the opportunity to read the Martin Luther King Day proclamation. So I was hoping that I could read this one, but I'll talk to him about it. I had a question though, about the consent agenda. When the reappointee is here and he's fine doing his comments during public comment, but that means that we won't have an opportunity to ask questions or comment on that appointment, correct?
I mean, that would be up to the body. Typically, that wouldn't be the case, but if there weren't objections, so it's up to you.
Well, if there aren't objections, I'd just like to say a few words about Mr. Hicks, if that's all right.
So I think the process would be before we do the roll call vote to ask if she could make comments, and if nobody objected, then we would just concede. Okay.
Right.
And then the person is informed that we do need to keep them to the 3-minute limit. Okay.
All right, so you have no resolutions on today's agenda unless something else gets moved off your consent. So I'll move to section 9, ordinances, and you have 2 this afternoon. The first is O 2024-572, and this is a chapter amending chapter 420 of the code. This is entitled property tax to expand the time period for requesting reductions due to a manifest error in the property description and making technical revisions. This received a due pass at Rules and Operations on January 27th. There is one amendment. We did discuss it, but the hard copy is in your packets today for study session, and they will be for council meeting this afternoon. Again, what this does is remove the technical changes, leaving only the provisions for allowing an extension of time for reducing or refunding taxes due to a manifest error in the description. So it would just take that out of the title and the exhibit provisions. The other proposal for you this afternoon is O 2024-573S, and this amends section 17C 6230 of the code. This is fireworks. It does a number of things, amending the application process for permits to sell. It amends the criteria for the issuance of a temporary order prohibiting the discharge of consumer fireworks and extends the hour when sales and purchases are permitted. This received a due pass as substituted at Rules and Operations on January 27th, and there are 2 amendments. They were briefed yesterday in study session, and nothing new on that. And those are your agenda items for this afternoon's meeting.
Okay, are there any questions from my colleagues on the agenda for this afternoon?
I did have one more thing, I'm sorry. So on the fireworks provision or proposal, we did receive a PowerPoint presentation after study session yesterday on that. So I don't know if there's a plan to do a presentation with a PowerPoint. This is from, I believe, one of the fire chiefs.
Oh.
And so we didn't know about it during study session discussion yesterday. And so think about that. I don't know if it's something that can be condensed into a 3-minute presentation or what your thoughts are, but just a heads up on that.
Okay, I have 2 lights up, so let's see, Councilmember Denson.
Well, now that Ms. Long is saying that, I believe Fire Marshal Rice mentioned to me that he was asked to come up with the PowerPoint. So is it not from Fire Marshal Rice?
I don't
So maybe he's
believe it
doing that as
is.
part of his presentation?
Andrea's around, but,
It is.
oh, sorry.
Staff will get the PowerPoint and verify the origin, and we'll huddle up with you, Chair, after the study session just to confirm the plans for the presentation. I wasn't aware of it myself until just now, so I'll check with staff. and-
Okay,
and
let's
find out.
see if Councilmember Krueger has an answer because she also lit her wish to speak. Councilmember
I wish I
Krueger?
had an answer.
Oh,
I was,
darn
I was trying to figure out what an administrative fix has to do with a PowerPoint and so I'm very anxious myself to see what that, okay,
Okay,
thank you.
we'll follow up and we may or may not have a PowerPoint during the meeting.
Just listen to-
Okay, well, thanks for the heads up and we'll see what it is and then work to run through the meeting as it makes sense. Any other questions on the agenda this afternoon? Okay. Ms. Long, you went over the amendments, so are we on to external boards and commissions? Okay. So we'll start with Mr. Taylor to brief us on external boards and commissions and then go to my colleagues.
Thank you. I will just focus on Puget Sound Regional Council in my brief out real quick. So just a reminder that the Growth Management Policy Board does meet this week. Councilmember Denson is your designated council member for that board. Meets on Thursday, February 6th at 10 a.m. There are a couple of action items on the agenda that I just wish to highlight for the council. The first is in regard to certification of comprehensive plans. And so a number of cities have their comprehensive plans before the board for the PSRC certification process, including the city of Lakewood. The other 2 cities are in King County, but our city, Lakewood, is included in the list for certification on Thursday. The other item I want to point out that's an action item is related to the Regional Transit Oriented Development Plan. So PSRC has established a committee that is comprised of local jurisdictions, transit operators, State Department of Transportation representatives, and others. The policy board will be considering the composition of that committee in their work program. So that's an action item as well. And also up for discussion will be the work plan for next year as well as the proposed budget. Those are just discussion items, but that's what I have to note for PSRC this week.
Okay, thank you. We have a Teams call happening. So anyone else have a board or commission that they participated in or want to update or solicit feedback? We'll go to Councilmember Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. I did have slightly outdated, but an update on January 24th. I met with the Board of Commissioners for Pierce Transit. It was the first meeting that it was a special meeting and the first meeting that we had in partnership with the Community Transportation Advisory Group. During that time, we discussed fixed route and productivity standards, their 2045 long-range plan, the 6-year forecast, and reviewed priority. We didn't conclude the conversation, but started the conversation around priorities in terms of providing service and what that looks like for our urbanized areas and our non-urbanized areas.
Okay, thank you for the update.
Mhm.
Anyone else have updates? So I will mention tomorrow is the Washington State Association of Counties Board meeting in the afternoon. I'll be down in Olympia for that. And while I didn't see any of my colleagues listed to be appointed to additional boards and commissions at the state level on behalf of WASAC, there's some good candidates from our region and beyond that I know will be good advocates just for county government. So excited to get those, get the county voice on several of these statewide boards and commissions. And then in addition, Board of Health is meeting tomorrow afternoon. And I tried to find the agenda this morning and was unsuccessful. So if I will let you know if there's a topic that I think some of you might have interest in, but I know we are also doing leadership tomorrow, as that was put off last week or last month due to Tacoma being absent. So I've confirmed Tacoma will be present, and so we will have our different governments there to make the decision on who is leading the Board of Health. So seeing no other boards and commissions updates, we will go to chair's topics. And the only thing that I have personally right now is just around training. Several of you may end up being involved in hiring processes. And so there's some training offered by the county around hiring practices and making them legal and just keeping yourself out of trouble, which we always like, because just like the executive session today, we don't necessarily always like having them. And this is one of the ways to protect us, is making sure that we are all on the same page. And if you are interested in doing that, specifically the date that the only date offered that worked for council members was February 13th. We're also encouraging staff to participate because we're including staff in some of these things. So, but please see Mr. Taylor about that. And then cyber training is out and about. Please do that if you have some time, sooner rather than later. And then Chris Gaddis sent us an invite for some safety related training that I'll send some details out after this meeting. And they also had time that worked on, like, didn't conflict with our council meeting schedules. I assume most of you would prioritize their council meetings. So, and so those are things that are available, and learning is important. So we'll just leave it at that. And those are my topics. So we can move on to other business, which starts with Mr. Dominique.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the council. Brian Dominique, your communications manager. As we discussed earlier in today's study session, we have Black History Month on the agenda. We have 4 confirmed guests for that proclamation. Jackie Jones Hook, she's the executive director of the Buffalo Soldiers Museum. We have Commander Reverend Robert L. Watson. He's the state commander of the Washington State Command Council. Shauna Lawson, she's a member of the Black Collective and also the associate director of alumni relations at University of Washington, Tacoma.
Keep going.
Oh, sorry. And we have, we also have Lyle Quazim from the Black Collective joining us as well. We did extend invitations to a couple other people. They may or may not be here. We don't have that confirmed. But if they are, I'll be sure to point those guests out to you guys. There is one proclamation in your packet honoring Ukraine's heroic defense against Russia's full-scale invasion. This was a community requested proclamation, and it's scheduled for February 18th. So take a look at that. Let me know if you have any edits, and it'll go before the Rules and Operations Committee next week. And then I've spoken with several of you already. We did receive a community request proclamation for Random Acts of Kindness Week. I don't believe this is one the council has done in the past, but there has been some interest. And we are exploring ways to expand the scope. That's been something I've heard from several council members. Feels very city-centric to a university place, I believe. So we want to expand that out to Pierce County as a whole. So we're looking at ways to do that. And we do have a sponsor at this time. So that's going to be moving through an expedited process because the proclamation will happen in February. Finally, for proclamations, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be looking and how we manage our inviting of guests. Basically, the idea behind this, we want to be able to provide more structure to how guests come and to respect their time and to give them the ability to be able to speak. So we just want to make sure we're managing that correctly. So I'm going to be looking at that, updating our policies or our procedure around proclamations, and I'll bring that forward to the council. And then for communications, last week, I know the chair talked about this, but since Councilman Morel's not here, I feel it's worth mentioning. We had a proclamation, we had a story about the first climate-controlled food locker on a college campus in the Western United States, and it's right here in Pierce County. So we did a blog write-up on that. We're also going to include some information in the county legislator about it. So that's pretty exciting. And that's our partners over at Good Roots Northwest and then Bates College South Campus. So if you have a chance to read that, give it a read. I think it's a pretty good piece. And then I'm in the early stages of working with Pierce County TV to incorporate live streaming of all our committee meetings. We've been doing our council meetings for close to 2 years now, live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. We want to take a similar approach to our committee meetings. This will align us closer with changes that the council made to the rules and procedures. It just provides more redundancy in our system in the event we can't get something on the system, and it just more access. So it sounds like it'll be pretty easy, but I'm in the early stages of that conversation. Once we make that move, I'll be sure the council knows that we're doing that. And just finally, I want to give a shout out to our clerk staff. We had some staffing issues yesterday in communications, and they really pulled through. I made sure the council business was able to continue. So I just wanted to give them a public shout out and say thank you. And that's all I have.
Thank you for that. Any questions for Mr. Dominique? Seeing none, thank you for the work on that, and agree, we get people who fill in and keep business going. I'm going to bring up something I forgot on chair's topics. We have a letter that is requested to deal with some property here in Pierce County and Department of Natural Resources. I'm going to turn this over to Councilmember Denson, who jogged my memory.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the council's time. I'm going to distribute this draft letter and thank our staff person, Mr. Kruger, for helping with this. So as a reminder to some of you, and some of you may not be aware, but last year during the 2024 session, the state legislature included some money for DNR. It was called the Encumbered Lands Acquisition Project. And they were directed to acquire land in 4 different counties. This is trust land, so they're also required to keep those trusts whole and find replacement lands. The 4 counties were Thurston, and there was actually specific forests in these counties. So it was Capital State Forest in Thurston, it was Green Mountain in Kitsap County, the Stillaguamish Watershed in Snohomish, and the LB Hills State Forest in Pierce County. And the idea was to acquire land for permanent conservation of structurally complex carbon-dense forests. So we became aware that Thurston and Kitsap have already submitted their proposed acreage to the DNR. And so Mr. Kruger and I had a discussion with DNR. We'd had some constituents from District 7 as well as other districts reach out and express interest in 2 different units in the LB Hills State Forest. And you'll see there's a map there. The constituents initially asked that we look at Unit 1 and Unit 2 there. Unit 1 is 49 acres and Unit 2 is 15. But when we had a conversation with DNR, they were great. They've been great to work with. But they brought up some factors to consider. They mentioned that a lot of Unit 1 and Unit 2 is what we refer to as county or junior taxing district trust land. So the sale of timber from those properties typically would come to the county, to the school district, to the fire district. That's problematic because the land that they have identified as replacement land is in Wahkiakum County. It's not overcomeable, but it's a bit of a challenge because we would have to come up with an agreement with Wahkiakum County so that when that land is harvested, and unfortunately it's been recently harvested, so like in 30 years when it's harvested again, some of that revenue would come back. You can imagine how complicated that would be. There was a couple other things that they mentioned about these units that was interesting as well. For example, Unit 1, if you'll look at the map, those yellow dots there, that's where they are clearing. This is being cleared with a veritable density harvest, which means it's being cleared in a manner that's going to improve habitat for the spotted owl, which they are also required to do through their planning purposes. So this is going to improve habitat in that area. And if we conserved it and did nothing, it actually would not be as good. Unit 2, the 15 acres, you'll see there's a bunch of roads going through there. This is a profitable area for them that they plan to clear cut and use those funds to maintain these roads that are very popular for recreation, for off-roading and horseback riding and camping. The funds would also be used to complete a culvert replacement project there on a salmon stream. So if we conserve that, that would be problematic for them income-wise. They came up with a suggestion for us. And so on your map, you'll see the large area in orange. That's 98 acres of land right there that we're kind of calling just Railroad Creek East. It's not a current timber sale, so really wasn't on anybody's radar before. They consider this to be just as good habitat, if not better, the same characteristics of being carbon complex. And they're suggesting that we look at that because in addition to its value in conservation and habitat, it's all federal common school trust land. And we can buy land anywhere in the state and keep that trust whole. So we don't have the complication of dealing with a different county. Our junior taxing districts, as well as the county, doesn't have any negative financial impacts. They will still get the revenue from Unit 1 and Unit 2 in particular. So I thought it was a great recommendation. We are working more and more with DNR to make sure that, we're reaching our land conservation goals and our habitat goals, but we're also respecting, what they need to do as stewards of these trusts. So Mr. Kruger prepared a letter outlining this plan to conserve the 98 acres that we would like to submit to DNR, which they will then send to their Natural Resources Board. And hopefully will agree to conserve this land in perpetuity. This land is not coming to the county or to anyone anywhere else. We got the impression from DNR that they would like to keep this land as DNR land, but it will be in permanent conservation. And I'll look to Mr. Kruger if I missed anything important, you think?
No, thank you, Mike Kruger, council staff. The one thing I would add, just for clarification, is that the goal behind this program is to keep the trust whole in terms of financial resources that are going to go to the school districts and to the fire district. And so that's where the Wahkiakum County comes into the play. The same value of timberlands that would be preserved through this effort, so the 98 acres that Councilman Denson is talking about, a similar value would then be available for harvesting in Wahkiakum County in a sustainable way. So it would be sustainable harvest in Wahkiakum, equaling the value of the harvest that would have occurred on the 98 acres. So it's not a 1-for-1 ratio. Likely in Wahkiakum, it's going to be a lot larger chunk of ground that's needed to make up the value of the 98 acres in Pierce that would be set aside. So it's a zero-sum game in terms of revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger. Any questions from my colleagues or comments?
Councilmember Kruger?
Thank you, Chair. This has caused a little anxiety with me in the sense that this is in my district and it was yesterday afternoon that I was approached that this is going on. Why didn't DNR come to me? Why didn't any of the environmental groups come to me to ask about this first? This is 98 acres of timber that is worth probably around, I think, in 2 million. The offset from the Deep River Wood purchase 20,000 acres that DNR, I believe, was 55 acres of it, and I think it was like 55 acres that they were able to purchase, and Conservation Fund did the rest, 9,000. We got 9,000 and the Conservation Fund did the rest, using that kind of a holding tank for us to draw from that to make these purchases. And I'm concerned with our timber industry in that we have mills that are shutting down. We have many families that are dependent upon this as a source of revenue, not to mention all of the products that are coming out of these forests that our citizens need. And this, when we're taking away resources that are renewable and replaceable, yes, it takes longer to do that, but this is what we have. I'm not inclined to be a total obstacle for this in looking at it. It is 98 acres. However, there are a couple things I may want to add into the letter because I want to make sure that this sale does not hinder the railroad. Trying to think of it, the Railroad Creek timber sale, to the west of that. I don't know that it would, but I would want to make sure. I'm concerned with the ecosystem services that are on this property and what will happen with those. Will we lose the rights to that? Will we lose the revenue or the asset if somebody else takes control of that? I don't know how all that would work, but I would like, if I could, I know, when were you looking at submitting this, today or next week?
As soon as I had council support or general council support, we want to make sure that we get our letter in so it's considered along with the others. I can't imagine this would have any impact on units 1 and 2 because that was what DNR was also trying to avoid. So I don't see that concern. I'm not sure what impact it would have on your second point either. I don't know if Mr. Kruger can
Well, just
respond to that.
For clarification, two things. One is that the only property that will be eligible in the LB Hills for consideration of this program is what is identified by the Pierce County legislative body. So if Pierce County Council says it's the 98 acres, Railroad Creek East identified in the map, those are the only properties that would be protected through this program. One other point for clarification, the funding for this that Councilman Denson mentioned was $15 million as part of the Natural Climate Solutions account that was allocated through the legislature last year. Of that amount, there's $575,000, so a fairly small percentage of that larger 15 million to be divided between the 4 counties that are eligible. The rest of the $15 million is for the Wahkiakum County part of the project, which has to do with creating these larger tracts of land for sustainable harvest over time. So it's basically 1/4-ish of $525,000 that would be eligible for use in Pierce County.
And let me just reiterate that the LB Hills State Forest was specifically called out in this proviso. So we need to look at like somewhere within the LB Hills State Forest. And to me, choosing this particular 98 acres that isn't even part of an active land sale, which is, again, if it was, people probably would have brought it up. So we don't even know when that would be harvested in the future. This preserves the income producing land in unit 2, the big income producing land that will produce some of the benefits that you've spoken to, Councilmember Kruger. So to me, considering land in the LB Hills State Forest, I would think this would be the most agreeable to you and certainly to the community. You can see that there are some houses right below this 98 acres that probably like the view, having chosen to live in that beautiful area. And so I think it's a win-win.
I'm not certain on that just yet. So, the other two counties have submitted, so I'm assuming there's not enough money to do all the properties that are being requested for consideration for this.
That'll be a decision by the Board of Natural Resources. And so to be considered, there's a deadline. I want to say it's in March, is my recollection. Councilwoman
I
Dempsey was
remember if there was a
taking note.
specific date, but they're wanting to move this along.
And they requested that all 4 jurisdictions that were considering participation include their letters of support simultaneously, so the board could choose between them. And you're correct, they may say, well, we've decided to put all of our eggs in one basket and we're gonna do everything in Snohomish or in the Capitol Forest in Thurston County. We won't know, but that will be a decision outside of the control of the council.
I guess in this, I would ask that we wait a week. I don't think that's asking too much considering it was a year ago when this was started. And then I'm told yesterday that this is coming about, and I doubt you started this 2 days ago in their
Last week.
negotiations or discussions with them.
It was pretty recent too.
Yeah,
We
well,
wanted
I
to move
just-
ahead.
I would really appreciate some more time to digest on this
Okay.
before, I'm not totally against it, though I'm just seem to be finding lately things going on in my district that I'm like, nobody told me. And I'm having a problem with that.
Yeah,
So
I
I
understand
I
that.
would ask for a week to next study session or Monday study session.
Would that be all right, Chair, if we discuss this on Monday?
We can add it to the agenda, and then if there's further questions, we can make sure that Councilmember Krueger gets them asked, and then also catching up Vice Chair Herrera and Morel to make sure that they are aware of it, so that a decision can be made on that Monday so that we can get it out the door.
Sounds good.
Anything else on that? Okay. Being nothing else, we'll go to Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to circle back to the discussion about the PowerPoint dealing with fireworks. I was able to locate that. It did in fact come from our fire marshal, Ken Rice. It's a very short PowerPoint. It has 4 slides in it that provide some basic background information on the permitting fee, the permitting window, improvements that would result from this legislation, and then some basic information on the red flag warning system. I think it would be beneficial information for you and the members of the public to have. It is currently in the packet. So my recommendation is that you have the fire marshal go through it. I don't think based upon what I'm seeing here, I don't expect it's going to take much time. It doesn't look like a lengthy PowerPoint, and you have capacity on your agenda to do it. So.
Sounds like a plan, Councilmember or
Thank you,
Krueger.
thank you, Chair.
the,
So then what I'm hearing is that it's an aid for him because he will be here and he
Correct.
can just, okay.
That's a good way to describe
Okay,
it.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah,
okay,
Sweet.
sounds good. Okay. Any other business besides an executive session? Okay, so let's go ahead and read in what the executive session is and be ready to tell us how much time we need, and then we'll do some math and figure out when it comes.
All right, thank you. So this is an executive session authorized by RCW 4230-110-1I. The purpose today is to discuss with legal counsel matters of pending or potential litigation to which the county is or may become a party, and which public knowledge of the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the county. And today there are 2 matters to discuss, and the time estimate is a half hour for you. So if you'd
Okay.
state the actual time before we go into executive session. Thank you.
So my math says 1:05. We're saying 30 minutes, so we will be in executive session until 1:05. We are back from executive session. The time is 1:07. There was no decisions made and no action taken, but we are adjourned from our study session. Thank you all.